Spirit had always been different. While other children in the slums played football in the dusty streets, he sat under the flickering light of their single bulb, devouring books his parents borrowed from the community library. His father, a taxi driver, and his mother, a street food vendor, worked 16-hour days to keep him in school. They had a dream: their son would become a doctor, the first in their family to wear a white coat. "Education is the only inheritance we can give you," his mother would say, pressing warm Naira notes into his palm for school fees. Spirit excelled. Top of his class. Scholarship offers from 3 universities. His parents threw a party with their meager savings, inviting the entire neighborhood. That night, as they drove home from celebrating, a drunk driver ran a red light. Spirit was at the library when he got the call. By the time he reached the hospital, they were gone. At 17, he stood at their grave with nothing but their dreams and an acceptance letter he could no longer afford to use. The scholarship covered tuition but not housing, books, or food. His uncle, who inherited their taxi, offered him a place to sleep in exchange for cleaning the car daily. It wasn't enough. Spirit withdrew from university before he even started. But he didn't give up on medicine. Central hospitals smelled of antiseptic and desperation. Spirit pushed his mop cart down the surgical wings corridor, invisible to the doctors rushing past. He'd been working there for 8 months, taking the night shift because it paid slightly more and because it gave him access. After the floors were cleaned and the halls emptied, Spirit would slip into the vacant conference rooms where medical journals lay scattered on tables. He photographed every page with his phone, reading them later in his uncle's taxi. He discovered YouTube channels run by surgeons from around the world. Lectures from Johns Hopkins, surgical demonstrations from Mayo Clinic, trauma procedures from battlefield medics. His phone became his medical school. He learned anatomy from a professor in India, surgical technique from a doctor in Brazil, emergency medicine from a paramedic in South Africa. He watched each video dozens of times, pausing and rewinding, his fingers moving through the motions in the air. The other cleaners thought he was strange. "Why are you watching those things?" his colleague Bola asked, peering at his screen during their break. "You think you'll become a doctor by watching videos?" "Maybe," Spirit replied quietly. "Or maybe I just want to understand." But it was more than understanding. Spirit began to recognize patterns the doctors missed. Once, while cleaning an operating room, he'd overheard Dr. Okonkwo, the head of cardiothoracic surgery, discussing a complicated case with her team. The patient had a rare arterial anomaly. The surgical approach they were planning seemed wrong to Spirit. He'd watched a similar case handled differently by a surgeon in Germany. He almost spoke up. Almost. But who would listen to a cleaner? The patient died on the table 3 days later. Dr. Okonkwo looked haunted for weeks. Spirit practiced obsessively. He bought pig hearts from the market with his wages, performing procedures in his uncle's garage. His uncle complained about the blood. The neighbors complained about the smell. Spirit kept practicing. His hands learned the weight of instruments, the resistance of tissue, the delicate pressure needed for sutures. "You're wasting your time and money," his uncle said. "Accept reality. You're a cleaner. Your parents' dream died with them." But Spirit remembered his mother's words. "Education is the only inheritance we can give you." They'd given him the hunger to learn. That inheritance was still alive. The day started like any other. Spirit arrived at the hospital at 10 p.m., collected his supplies and began his rounds. He was mopping the administrative wing when he heard the commotion. Sirens, shouting, security clearing corridors. The president had been shot. Spirit abandoned his mop and followed the chaos to the trauma bay. Through the crowd of security personnel and frantic staff, he caught glimpses of the scene. The president, a man whose face appeared on every news channel, lay on a gurney, his white shirt soaked crimson. The bullet had entered through his chest. "We need to operate now," someone shouted. Spirit watched from the doorway as they rushed the president to the hospital's largest operating room. Doctors swarmed, barking orders. Spirit knew he should leave, but something kept him there. He slipped into the observation gallery above the where medical students usually watched procedures. Tonight it was empty. Below, the chief of surgery, Dr. Adeyemi, examined the scans with trembling hands. The bullet fragmented. Pieces lodged in the superior vena cava and right atrium. The vessel is partially torn. Spirit's breath caught. He'd studied this exact injury in a case presentation from a trauma surgeon in Chicago. The procedure was extraordinarily complex. One wrong move and the patient would bleed out in seconds. "Who's operating?" someone asked. Silence. Long, terrible silence. "The mortality rate for this repair is 70%. Dr. Adeyemi said slowly. If we fail, we've killed the president. Our careers are over. Possibly our lives. If we don't operate, he dies anyway, Dr. Okonkwo said. Then let it be on nature, not on our hands, another surgeon replied. Spirit watched in horror as one by one the surgeons stepped back. Fear had paralyzed them. The president's blood pressure was dropping. On the monitors, his heart rate grew irregular. The chief of staff, a large man in a military uniform, burst into the OR. What's happening? Why isn't anyone operating? Sir, the procedure is too risky. I don't care about risk, the chief of staff roared. The president is dying. I'll give $1 billion, $1 billion, to whoever saves his life. And I'll ensure their medical license, their position, everything they need. $1 billion. The number hung in the air like smoke. Still no one moved. Spirit's mind raced. He'd watched the Chicago surgeon perform this procedure. He'd studied every step, every complication, every decision tree. He'd practiced similar repairs on pig hearts 17 times. His success rate on pigs was 80%. But he was a cleaner. A boy with a mop and a phone. The president's monitor began to alarm. Ventricular tachycardia. Spirit's body moved before his mind could stop it. He stood, opened the gallery door and descended the stairs. His legs felt like water. His heart hammered so hard he thought it might burst. He pushed through the OR doors. I can do it, he heard himself say. Every head turned. Dr. Adeyemi squinted at him. Who are you? My name is Spirit. I'm a cleaner here. And I can perform this surgery. The room erupted. Laughter, angry shouts, someone calling security. Get this boy out of here. Dr. Adeyemi commanded. Wait. Dr. Okonkwo stepped forward, studying Spirit's face. You're the cleaner from the night shift. I've seen you reading medical journals. Reading journals doesn't make you a surgeon, Dr. Adeyemi snapped. No one else is volunteering, Spirit said, his voice stronger now. The president has maybe 10 minutes. You can either let me try or you can watch him die and explain to the nation why no one had the courage to operate. The chief of staff grabbed Spirit by the shoulders. His eyes were wild with desperation and hope. You can really do this? You're not just some crazy kid. Spirit met his gaze. I've studied this procedure for 2 years. I've practiced it 17 times. I know every step, every complication, every decision point. I can't promise success, but I can promise I'll try when no one else will. He's insane, someone muttered. He's our only option, the chief of staff said. He turned to Dr. Adeyemi. Let him try. If the president dies, the failure is on all of us for not operating. But if this boy saves him. He didn't finish the sentence. Dr. Adeyemi looked at the monitors. The president's blood pressure was now critically low. He closed his eyes and nodded. Scrub in. God help us all. Spirit's hands shook as he scrubbed at the sink. This was insane. He was about to operate on the president of the nation based on YouTube videos and practice sessions on pig hearts. If he failed, he wouldn't just be fired, he might be imprisoned or worse. Dr. Okonkwo appeared beside him, scrubbing her own hands. I'm assisting you, she said quietly. Tell me exactly what you need. You believe I can do this? No, she said honestly. But I believe you're brave enough to try. And I remember that case 3 months ago, the arterial anomaly. You were cleaning the OR when we discussed it. I saw you pause, saw you start to say something, then stop. What were you going to say? Spirit swallowed. That the approach was wrong. There was a German technique better suited for that specific anomaly. The patient died. I know. What was the German technique? Spirit explained it in precise detail. Dr. Okonkwo's eyes widened. That would have worked. Why didn't you speak up? I'm a cleaner. Who would have listened? I'm listening now. She handed him a towel. Let's go save the president. The OR was silent except for the beeping monitors and the hiss of ventilators. Spirit approached the table where the president lay, draped and prepped. Through the window he could see dozens of faces pressed against the glass. Hospital staff, security, government officials. All watching. All waiting for him to fail. 10-blade scalpel, Spirit said, and his voice was steady. Dr. Okonkwo placed it in his palm. The instrument felt right, familiar from his practice sessions. Spirit took a breath and made the initial incision. Blood welled up and he heard someone gasp from the gallery. Suction, he said calmly. We need to open the chest quickly but carefully. His hands remembered. Every video he'd watched, every practice session, every page he'd photographed and studied, it all came together. He worked through the layers of tissue, placed the retractors, exposed the chest cavity. The heart lay before him, beating weakly. The torn superior vena cava leaked blood with each pulse. There, Spirit said, pointing. You can see the tear. And there, bullet fragments in the atrial wall. We need to repair the vena cava first, then extract the fragments. The vein is too damaged, Dr. Adeyemi said from where he watched. It's not just torn, it's shredded. We'll use a patch graft, Spirit said. Bovine pericardium. It's the same technique they use for pediatric heart defects. Dr. Okonkwo, I need you to hold here while I prepare the graft. For the next 4 hours, Spirit worked with absolute focus. The world narrowed to the few cubic centimeters of the president's chest. He repaired the vein with tiny, precise sutures. He extracted the bullet fragments one by one, working around the beating heart. When bleeding obscured his view, he calmly requested suction. When a stitch threatened to tear through fragile tissue, he adjusted his angle. Dr. Okonkwo watched in awe. This wasn't the fumbling of an amateur. Spirit's hands moved with the confidence of a surgeon who'd performed this procedure 100 times. His decisions were instant and correct. He called for instruments before she could anticipate the need. Where did you learn this? She whispered. Dr. Marcus Chin from Chicago Memorial, Spirit replied, not looking up from his work. Dr. Yuki Tanaka from Tokyo General. Dr. Sarah Williams from London Bridge Hospital. Dr. Ahmed Hassan from Cairo Medical Center. They taught me everything. They taught you? You studied under them? No. I watched their videos. I studied their techniques. I learned from the best surgeons in the world. He paused to check the repair. Increase the ventilation slightly. We need better exposure of the atrial wall. The machine settings adjusted. Spirit continued working. In the gallery, more people had gathered. The vice president, cabinet ministers, journalists kept at bay by security. Someone had called the president's wife, and she stood with her hands pressed against the glass, tears streaming down her face. Final sutures, Spirit said. His voice was hoarse from hours of concentration. Dr. Okonkwo, check my work. Tell me if you see any leaks. She examined his repairs closely. The vena cava patch was perfect, each suture placed with millimeter precision. The atrial wall had been reconstructed flawlessly. No leaks. Spirit, this is extraordinary. We're not done. We need to close and make sure he stabilizes. They closed the chest. Spirit stepped back, finally allowing himself to feel the exhaustion. His legs trembled. Sweat soaked his scrubs. His hands, which had been steady for 6 hours, now shook uncontrollably. The anesthesiologist checked the monitors. Heart rate stabilizing. Blood pressure rising. He's responding well. A cheer erupted from the gallery. The chief of staff burst through the hors d'oeuvres, laughing and crying simultaneously. He's alive. The president is alive. Dr. Adeyemi approached Spirit, his face unreadable. For a moment, Spirit thought he was about to be reprimanded. Instead, the chief of surgery extended his hand. I've been operating for 30 years, he said quietly. I've never seen anyone handle a case this complex with such skill. Who are you really? Spirit shook his hand, still trembling. I'm just a boy who wanted to be a doctor. Like my parents dreamed. Dr. Okonkwo removed her surgical mask, revealing a smile. You're not just a boy anymore, Spirit. You're a surgeon. One of the best I've ever seen. Spirit woke in a private hospital room, confused about how he'd gotten there. The last thing he remembered was finishing the surgery, then his legs giving out. Someone must have caught him. Sunlight streamed through expensive curtains. The room had a private bathroom, a television, fresh flowers on the nightstand. Through the window he could see news vans packed in the hospital parking lot. A knock on the door. The chief of staff entered, followed by Dr. Okonkwo and several people in suits. Our hero is awake. The president? Spirit asked immediately. Recovering beautifully. You saved his life. The chief of staff sat on the edge of the bed. The nation wants to know about you, Spirit. Your story. Where you came from, how you learned to perform surgery like that. Over the next hour, Spirit told them everything. His parents, the accident, the abandoned scholarship, the years of studying alone. The pig hearts in his uncle's garage. The videos he'd watched 1,000 times. One of the suited men, the Minister of Health, shook his head in amazement. This is impossible. No one learns surgery from videos. I didn't just learn it, Spirit said. I lived it. Every day for 3 years. While other people watched movies or played games, I studied. Every naira I earned went to buying pig hearts to practice on. I wanted to honor my parents' dream. Dr. Okonkwo smiled. The media is calling you the miracle cleaner. Within an hour of the surgery ending, your story went viral. You're on the front page of every newspaper. International news agencies are requesting interviews. I don't want to be famous, Spirit said. I just want to finish what I started. I want to become a real doctor. About that. The chief of staff opened a briefcase and pulled out a check. The promised reward. 1 billion naira. Spirit stared at the check. The number seemed meaningless, too large to comprehend. With this money he could attend any medical school in the world. He could live comfortably forever. He thought of his parents working 16-hour days so he could have a future. He thought of all the patients he'd seen at Central Hospital who couldn't afford treatment. He thought of the children in his old neighborhood who had dreams but no opportunities. I have a request, Spirit said slowly. Before I accept this money. Everyone leaned forward. I want to use most of it to start a foundation. The Spirit Medical Foundation. It will provide full scholarships, tuition, housing, books, everything, to poor students who want to study medicine. It will also fund free surgeries for people who can't afford care. The Minister of Health smiled. That's very noble. But what about yourself? Your own education. I'll keep enough for medical school and living expenses. But the rest goes to help others. That's what my parents would have wanted. The chief of staff clasped his shoulder. You have the heart of a healer. But Spirit, you've already proven you can perform surgery at the highest level. The president has personally requested that you attend Columbia Medical School in New York. Full scholarship, all expenses paid, fast-tracked program. When you return, you'll have a guaranteed position as chief resident at Central Hospital. Spirit's eyes widened. Columbia. One of the best medical schools in the world. There's more, Dr. Okonkwo added. Every major medical school has offered you admission. Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, Oxford, Cambridge, they all want you. You've become an inspiration. The boy who taught himself surgery and saved the president. The door opened and the president himself entered in a wheelchair, still weak but alive. His wife pushed the chair, tears of joy on her face. The room stood at attention. No, sit, the president said, waving them down. He looked at Spirit. So you're the young man who saved my life. Spirit stood awkwardly. Sir, I just did what needed to be done. You did what trained surgeons were too afraid to attempt. You had courage, skill, and compassion. The president reached out and Spirit shook his hand. I understand you want to use your reward to help others. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. The nation needs more people like you. I just want to honor my parents, sir. They sacrificed everything so I could become a doctor. The president nodded slowly. They raised an extraordinary son. I'm making it my personal mission to ensure you receive the best medical education possible. And when you return to our country as a fully trained surgeon, we'll build you a state-of-the-art hospital. The Spirit Medical Center. Where you can train the next generation of doctors and provide free care to those who need it. Spirit felt tears on his cheeks. Thank you, sir. Thank you. 3 months later, Spirit stood in his uncle's taxi, now clean and blood-free. He wore a suit donated by a local businessman, his first suit ever. His flight to New York left in 4 hours. The Spirit Medical Foundation had been officially launched with a ceremony attended by thousands. 20 students had already been awarded full scholarships. The free surgery program had performed its first successful operation, a child's heart defect repair, conducted by Dr. Okonkwo with Spirit observing. His neighborhood threw him a farewell party. The same streets where he'd once been just another poor kid now had a banner, Our Hero Spirit, Pride of the Community. Dr. Okonkwo drove him to the airport. Nervous? She asked. Terrified, Spirit admitted. I'm going to be studying with people who had every advantage. Private schools, expensive tutors, their own resources. I'm just a kid with a phone who watched videos. No, Dr. Okonkwo said firmly. You're a surgeon who saved the president's life when no one else could. You're a young man who turned tragedy into triumph, who taught himself a skill that takes others a decade to master. Your Spirit. Never forget what that name means. At the airport, a crowd had gathered. Well-wishers, journalists, people who'd been inspired by his story. A young boy, maybe 10 years old, pushed through the crowd and handed Spirit a worn medical textbook. My dad is a security guard, the boy said shyly. We can't afford medical school. But I watch videos on YouTube like you did. Will I become a doctor too? Spirit knelt down to the boy's level. He saw himself in those hopeful eyes. What's your name? Emmanuel. Emmanuel, let me tell you something my mother told me. Education is the only inheritance that truly matters. If you want to be a doctor, study every single day. Learn from the best teachers in the world, they're all on YouTube waiting for students like us. Practice until your hands know the work by heart. And never, ever let anyone tell you that your dreams are too big. He signed the textbook, to Emmanuel, the next great surgeon. Spirit. The boy's face lit up like the sun. On the plane, Spirit watched his country shrink beneath him. Somewhere down there, his parents were buried. He touched the window, making a silent promise. Asterisk, I'm going to make you proud. I'm going to become the doctor you dreamed of. And I'm going to help hundreds of others achieve their dreams too. Asterisk. The cleaner was going to medical school. But more than that, Spirit had proven something the world desperately needed to believe. That talent could come from anywhere, that determination could overcome any obstacle, and that sometimes the person who saves you isn't the one with the most credentials, it's the one with the most heart. 4 years later, Dr. Spirit returned home with his medical degree, ready to open the Spirit Medical Center. But that's another story entirely.